Well, my name is Joe Pippins. I'm out of Olathe, Kansas. I am father of three children, 20, 16, and 13, and I'm an inventor, lifelong inventor, and the owner and president of the Fishing Caddy, the world's first all-in-one fishing system. So a little bit about myself as far as for the inventing process. Since I was a kid, I've always had a knack for creating things. And one of my first inventions I had was, we grew up really poor, so we did not have a lot of toys to play with. So I started making cars out of my cereal boxes and designed those for my sister and for myself as well to enjoy, having fun as a kid. So a little bit about the fishing caddy. I took up the sport of fishing from my mentor, Mr. Kurt Robertson, who recently passed away. Taught me the sport of fishing. It was a great way for us to bond. And like most Americans, it's a great outdoor activity that's low cost and gives you a chance to spend quality time with the ones you love. So Mr. Kurt Robertson was also my soccer coach in high school and kind of like a second dad to me. So the fishing caddy would not be here today if it was not for Mr. Kurt Robertson. So fishing itself was a great way for me to relax and also spend time with my kids. And, I quickly noticed that there were so many parts of that process that just were unnecessary and soaked up a lot of my precious time I had with my kids. So I wanted to do something about that. So whenever you go fishing, I don't know if anybody's ever, has gone fishing with multiple people, you have to carry a lot of gear, from your tackle box to your chair, to your stringer, your poles. And of course, you need a place to sit your beverage as well. So it becomes a very time consuming process to gather up all these items every single time you move spots. So I wanted to do something about that. So I started creating the fishing caddy out of a Home Depot bucket, an actual orange Homer bucket. And I started piecing together PVC parts and spray painted those and really designed the first prototype for the fishing caddy just to make sure that it would work and that it would actually help me catch fish. So the main gist of the fishing caddy is to reduce the time it takes to move from spot to spot. But along the way, I kind of enhanced the product to make it more efficient to catch fish as well. So, the Home Depot bucket was the first one. I hand stitched every single lid. I actually hand cut every single decal and placed it onto each pail. And after working about 12 to 14 hours in finance, I would get home late and spend about 3 or 4 hours, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, making this fishing caddy. So end up selling around 300 of these prototypes, which is one of the most important phases, I think I'd say, for the inventing process. So anyone that has a product or a invention, so to speak, that they want to bring to market, I would encourage you to make your own prototype. There's a lot of things you'll learn when you're making that prototype, and it also helps reduce your cost as well, because that can be very expensive. So, you don't want to soak up all your funds in this research and development phase. Do a lot of it yourself, from everything from the design to the coloring. Just do as much as you can on your own. And once you've reached your point of pinnacle where you cannot, I guess you say, proceed or move forward with your product, then you may want to reach out to professionals. And obviously, colleges and other, uh, education places are great places to look for this services. So I built my first prototype, and like I said, it was very effective. Every time I would go fishing, people would ask questions about what this fishing caddy was. And at the time, it actually did not have a name, which is another reason why I'm a real big believer in doing a lot of things yourself in terms of the patenting and even the names and marketing and trademark. You don't want to spend a ton of money on this part of the process because your product is going to change many, many, many times. So after I sold 300 of those prototypes, I quickly put together a couple focus groups where I gave out a couple gift cards to different fishermen. I put an ad out in the Kansas City Star and on Craigslist, and we got about 30 people that showed up for this Q&A for the fishing caddy. And I was asking them what their number one complaints were, and they pretty much helped me design the actual fishing caddy. So that brings me to another thing too. When you're researching a product, you don't want to just solve a problem that you believe is a problem rather. You want to ask the actual market. And that's a really low cost way to do that as well. I think I probably spent maybe $50 on, gift cards, and got these people's emails too, which is really important because as you start developing your product, these people and consumers want to be on the ground floor of something amazing like that. So these customers purchased my fishing caddies many times over, and just along the way gave me tips and advice on how to make my product the best. And I also want to talk about the difference between a critic and a consumer. A lot of times when you're inventing or creating a product or starting a business or anything, being an entrepreneur in general, you're going to have those dark days. You know, you're going to have those days where you're going to feel like you're not going anywhere. You're not going to see any results. People are probably going to laugh at you. They're going to maybe say some hurtful and mean things to you, which occurred to me, to the point where I actually took my prototype that I was telling you guys about, the first one, and I put it in the trash after going on Facebook and just hearing some of the mean comments that people were making. And it wasn't necessarily that I was soft-skinned. I was like, man, maybe this isn't a great idea at all. You know, maybe it's just something I like. So it was really important for that focus group to come together, because they gave me a really nice, I guess you say, encouragement to continue, because they loved the product. And once they used it, they loved it even more. So I think it's so important to get the consumers involved, make sure these people have a way to communicate with you. When I first started this company, I had a lot of the consultants telling me, man, you're crazy for giving out your cell phone, you know, my personal cell phone number. And I wanted to be in contact with every single order that I person that purchased a fishing caddy, because I wanted to know what we can improve upon. I wasn't really too concerned about, you know, the pats on the back as far as for what worked, but I wanted to hear what didn't work. So I gave a 60-day money back guarantee, almost like begging people to return the product if it didn't work. And the reason for that is I wanted to make sure that during the product and development phase, before we got the mask, that we didn't have any major flaws that would cause some problems, because I had no idea how expensive molds were, but to design around a flaw is like super expensive and can also take you out of business as well. So, you know, consumers were a big part of it. Obviously selling the product and testing it, which kind of goes back to, if you're inventing or designing something for a profit only, you're probably not going to get very far. The reason why is there's not a lot of profit in developing and bringing products to market. I say in entrepreneurs, most of us don't generate a profit for a while. So it's got to be something you're passionate about. And, you know, I was a guy that was going out it didn't care if it was snowing outside. I was fishing. So it was a great, perfect match for me, something I was passionate about, which was fishing and spending time with my kids. You know, my kids helped me build this company. My friends and family have too. And I've just had a ton of support to help me bring the Fishing Caddy to light. So kind of going back to the name, you know, I had actually started out with the name called Easy Hits, which I thought was like a great name to like kind of design, describe rather how my product helped them catch more fish. But it sounded really cool, but no one really know what Easy Hits was. So I kind of came up with the name, the Fishing Caddy. I did some great resources, which I recommend. Upwork, if you're looking for any talent all across the world, from India to the United States, was a place I used for a lot of my, my copywriting. I use 99 Designs for my logo. Great place to go. They have different packages just based off your budget on what you could spend. So I went through a couple of different logos there. And once again, I kept putting up this feedback on my Facebook page because I wanted to get the feedback from the consumers, like which one of these logos did you like the best? Which one of these package design do you like the best? And they were the ones that really led me to what would work. And at the end of the day, I kind of had to follow my gut too. So that's one thing I would say too for entrepreneurs and product developers. You know, you got to follow your gut. There's going to be times that people are going to tell you to go A, and you feel like you should go a different route. There's nothing wrong with blending those two things and kind of doing both of them. But at the end of the day, you've got to follow your gut, because if everything goes well, you're going to feel great about it. And if everything doesn't go well, you'll still feel great about it because you did your best. So then kind of an amazing thing happened. Talk about following my gut. There was this website called Oddity Mall on Facebook that had features of inventions. And something in my gut was like, send these guys an email and ask them to feature your Fishing Caddy video that I had designed using one of my contractors off Upwork. It was an animated video. You'll probably find it on our YouTube channel, the Fishing Caddy. So this Oddity Mall responded back, and they featured the Fishing Caddy right around Christmas time. So here I was around Christmas time, having an amazing, Christmas season. Our product is great for gifting, and a lot of times people don't know what to get outdoorsmen. So this video went viral, like literally in, man, I think it was probably like in 2 weeks. So these sales were just like coming in like crazy. So this is right after I had started my first batch of manufacturing and had a really great experience there. So that was one of the reasons I was really proud and following my gut. And then I visualized everything of success with my business and with my product. My partners, Bass Pro and Cabela's, Ace Hardware, Shield Sporting Goods, and Walmart just recently were people that I had visualized being my partner. So I think when you have to stay on track with your vision, but also not get too distracted. And I will say that's something I spent a ton of money and time on, just trying so many different things, just trying to figure out what will work. While I was glad I did that, I wish I would have done a much better job of controlling my funds at that time. So um, a little bit about the manufacturing process. I would recommend, if you're going to enter into a manufacturing agreement with manufacturers, I would try to start with domestic ones first, just because like one of my manufacturers rather, is in Kansas City, Missouri. I can drive down to the warehouse, which I've had to do many times, to fix things or to inspect things and things that went wrong. And if this manufacturer is far away, you can find yourself spending a ton of money on flights. So not only that, but we've got to do a better job of supporting our local businesses, and that includes the manufacturers. So I try to use as many local people as possible. It's a great way to build relationships, but it's also good for cost savings. Now, if you do enter into overseas manufacturing, you've got to really be very careful and look at the shipping and tariffs and those sort of things in terms of what that's going to cost, because that can also be a surprise and take out a lot of your funds. But I honestly would not recommend jumping straight into manufacturing anything until you've proven that the market wants to purchase it. And I'll tell you how to do that. Build your prototype. If you have to get an animated video to show what it does, put up a WordPress website and just start collecting payments, and let the consumers know they're in the ground floor of something amazing. And get these pre-orders. People will part from their money. Then that you've got a real product. I had tons of people, hey, that sounds great, I want to buy it, and they never bought it. So, when these consumers purchase your product, then maybe take those funds and kind of pre-order them from there. So don't spend a ton of money on, patents up front, because they're going to change. I've had probably 6 or 7 different patent applications over the time, and just various different things that change. So I would not spend a ton of money there. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on websites either. Just get a very basic website. As a matter of fact, consumers like things simple, especially since most of the purchases are made on mobile. So just kind of look at yourself when you purchase from your favorite places like Amazon or Walmart. They're not really fancy. They got a picture of the product and white background. So do not spend a ton of money on websites. Focus on sales, 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 because if you can't drive sales, you've got nothing. And if you need help with sales, that's obviously something that I specialize in as well, along with my product development, is helping other entrepreneurs and inventors know how to sell their products. So other great low cost places to sell your product is on Etsy. You could also get an Amazon page for fairly inexpensive, and there's just a lot of really cool things you could do there. And then I probably would really try to find partnerships, but make sure you're not giving out a ton of free product early on, because that also costs money. And honestly, I haven't seen a lot of success from giving someone something for free. Your real consumers will pay for your product, and you've got to be willing to ask for that. Let's talk a little bit about pricing. You ask yourself, what could I price this for? Well, one great way to figure that out is hop on these Facebook groups and introduce your product, and do not be afraid of someone stealing it or maybe knocking it off or whatever, because reality is it's just way too hard to start an idea from in your mind to putting it physically in front of you. So don't hold on to things and just try to keep it from the world, because honestly, you're never going to build a great product if you don't tell anyone. But ask them, hey, what would you buy this for? Oh, by the way, can I have your email when this goes live? Would you be a buyer? And if they say yes, then you got some great places, MailChimp, to collect people's emails, when they see the video of the product. My pricing was kind of interesting. The cheaper I sold my price, the less amount of sales that I received. And of course, every product has a cap, a ceiling. But I had people tell me, oh, $39 is too much. And I was spending 2 hours of my time building these fishing caddies in my basement, hand stitching the lids and spray painting them. And it was kind of offensive that people thought that, $39 was too much. But once again, that's not my consumer. My consumer is a convenience consumer, which will pay money for convenience. They're not a value customer. There's two different things. And I would recommend when you're starting out early to really go for that convenience customer, not someone who's looking to get something for cheap, because you got to keep money coming in. And I'd probably say the biggest thing I would say to anyone, entrepreneur or inventor, debt and expenses. They will destroy you later on. It doesn't seem like a big deal to have that $15 membership to, some sort of, group to get some information or, whatever, but you got to watch those, because as your product grows, you're going to need that money that your product is generating to stay in business. So if you spend all your money on, a prototype, or, this marketing guy who says he's going to, take you to $1 million in sales, I've done all that. I spent tons of money on, consultants and marketing teams and all that. And the funny thing is I actually outperform them all. And that reason why is because I actually know my customer. I know what they want to see. I know what they like. And when I post on my Facebook pages and my groups, my customers are like, hey, this is Joe. But then something changes and they're like, man, who's this? This doesn't resonate with my audience. So really try to do this on a scaled basis. And do not ever let anybody tell you this all in or all out. I've had investors and business groups, oh, you're not a real inventor or a real business owner until you're all in. That is crazy that anybody would leave a job that's paying their bills and taking care of their family for something that has not generated money yet. And it puts a tremendous amount of pressure and stress on yourself and the people that you love and care about, because your time is going to be taken from you. And if the resources aren't there to balance that out, you'll find yourself a very unhappy person. And this will not be a positive process for you. So I would recommend stay with your day job, dedicate some time on your weekends, when you get off from work, and then also find a time when you can turn your phone off. Don't make yourself 24-hour entrepreneur. Turn your phone off at a certain time. And please, if you're married, spend time with your wife. If you got kids, spend time with your kids, get them involved in that. And you really got to have their blessing in this too, because they're going to make some sacrifices that, no one tells you about. And when you get in this process, you'll see what I mean. But do not make it an all in, all out thing. Anybody tells you that, I think it's real important to remind yourself on why you're building your company or why you're building your product and what your mission is. Some people do it to get rich, and those people probably will never really generate any revenue because they'll be cautious about, designing what works versus, what will sell. And I guess I'd say the other thing is your attitude. Celebrate those small wins. I remember when I was on Facebook, I'd post when I got my patent. Man, I'm so excited. I got my first patent. And it's so hard to get a patent. And I had some people inbox me, oh man, you think you're all that? And I'm like, no, I'm just celebrating my wins, because there's days where I put my prototype in the trash. So be proud of yourself, have fun, be around like-minded people too. Don't isolate yourself. Don't get stuck in the lab where you're trying to continue to invent and build. Like, get around other entrepreneurs and people that are doing the same thing, and you'll be amazed some of the resources you'll get. Real quickly, I'll talk a little bit about retail placement. A lot of different ways you can get retail placement. Some of the retailers have open casting calls. If you're a minority or a female business owner, if you can become a minority supplier, that's another great way to get in those. And then I have not found of reaching out to LinkedIn to the buyers and contacting them and sending them samples to be an effective way. You really have to catch these people when they're available, because they're very, very busy. So if you do want to get retail placements in places like Walmart, Target, Ace Hardware, places like that, that's something I can assist with as well. And I'll be glad to answer any questions for that. And I guess the last part about this before I jump into the questions is be willing to also know when your time is up. When are you going to fold? When are you going to sell? What's your deadline, or your top line on your investment? Do not do this. I give up everything and I banked everything on the house for your business or your product. It's not a smart thing to do in this environment, because that 401k that you're using and that savings account that you're liquidating to do this business you may need that to survive. So be wise with your money. And there's a ton of different resources out there, the SBA, and not GoFundMe, but the Kickstarters rather, which I use. And I had a successful Kickstarter campaign that you can use to grow your product too, and do it safely while using other people's support to do that. So I guess I say lastly, just go do it. Don't be afraid. The fear is always going to be there, and you'll find it when you step out there with a calculated risk. It's an amazing feeling when you start seeing your baby come to life, and have a lot of fun. So I guess I will leave it at that. But I'd like to field some questions from you guys if you have any.
That was great. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Before we jump into the questions, do you mind if I bring up the Fishing Caddy website so folks can see the product that you designed? I think it's really clever and folks might like to see, and you could tell us a little bit about the design process, what you were thinking. So I've got the Fishing Caddy website up, and you've got several different models now I see on your site.
Yes.
And you described, you had personal experience with fishing and with the equipment that you were trying to manage, especially when you were bringing kids with you. And it looks like you've really thought about those kind of pain points and sought to solve them. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the far one on the far left, that's our best seller. That's the camo model Fishing Caddy. You'll notice it has the 2 LED lights there in the front. That was basically designed so that you can see your path when you're walking. It's right at the height of your hips to keep you from tripping over things. But while you're sitting on it, you can also use it to tie your knots as well. The 2 rod holders that you see, the fishing rods in there, those are secured in the Fishing Caddy by a white nut on the inside, and the new models slide onto a bracket. And the little hole in the front is once you dip it in water, that secures it in place. So it holds up to 40 pounds of water weight. You could also keep your fish inside. And then that hole is where you tilt it forward and the water flows out of it, making it lighter for transport.
Wow.
The lid on the top is also, padded as well. And I'm really proud of this. My product is majority made here in the USA. So it's a made in the USA product. So we did use some American suppliers, and that does equate to a higher cost, but it really was important for me to, try to keep as much of my income coming in to feed other families inside the United States. So, so we have a ton of products there, the camo ones, the blue ice ones. We have little ones for the kids too. So we wanted to design something that's, the families can go out and go fishing and enjoy their time. And it's really, $17 for a year-long fishing license, and you can get worms out of your garden if you need to. So it's a really low-cost product. So
that's great. And just a reminder to our listeners that you are welcome to enter your questions using the Q&A feature in your Zoom client or the comments on the Facebook page. I thought maybe we could start a little bit with now that you've taken a product from this idea through this invention process, taking it to market, what does your average day look like? Or if you find that you don't have average days because every day is different, what's your week look like this week? What's the nature of the work, your work environment look like?
Well, it's quite a few things. There seems to always be an invoice you're chasing down, or some sort of website maintenance or partnership, tweaks or paperwork that you need to do. So there's a lot of admin. It's not really my strength. I don't like paper at all, but it's part of the process. Obviously every day you're fielding tons of emails from various people or different companies that are wanting to partner with you or volunteer their services to help you grow your brand. And that's where you can sometimes get distracted, chasing after the next shiniest thing. And that's why it's important to do things yourself. And then pretty much after that, it's filling orders. And that's something that we're, one of our growth areas for us is continuing to use our fulfillment centers to, complete our orders and make sure the customers are attended to too. So a lot of it's emails and, a lot of admin work, I guess you'd say, that takes place with this. So that's something that you got to know going into it as well.
So wearing a lot of those administrative hats, do you get much opportunity to engage in the inventing process? I see that you've built new components and new aspects to the original design. Is that something that's ongoing for you?
Yeah, but it's not the main focus at this point because we've got so many different variations of our product that we're really focusing on trying to execute and get as much ROI on what we've already designed. Other than like creating some special decals or wrappings for our product, we're sticking true to what we currently have and pushing that forward.
That's great. So while we're talking about kind of how your career has evolved from the process of creating the product to moving into this entrepreneurial aspect where you're running the business, really managing the business, what are the types of skills that you think future inventors, folks who are maybe in high school, early college age, who have that inkling of a problem they could solve, and they're trying to think about how to get started, what are those soft skills that folks could be developing now while they're early in the process that could prepare them for success when they reach this stage that you're at?
Biggest thing I would say is become just fanatic about learning. Before you go jump and start and build anything or start a business or anything, take some classes at your local, college or whatnot to, learn a little bit more about, engineering or starting a business, accounting. Those are really important things too. But as far as I guess building something, I would say one of the skills that I would recommend is just being able to use the resources that are around you. Don't spend a lot of time and money paying for something to build something. Like me, for instance, I use Home Depot parts. It cost me like $10 to make something, and I can't tell you how many times I destroyed that and started over. And yeah, that was expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than, like my first prototype, spending, $8,000 on something I didn't even end up using. It's not even a part of my company at this time. So I would say become resourceful. And secondly, I would say get comfortable networking. If you're more of a kind of introverted person that's more like to keep to themselves, I would challenge you to use your part of your time and just getting out there and meeting other inventors and ask for a mentor. If you meet someone that impresses you, say, hey, I'm just now starting this process. Would you mind if I called you sometime for some information? There are some people that will pass that on. They will be willing to help you, grow your product and brand.
I'm glad you touched on mentoring. That's a question that we have come up. How important is mentoring, and how do you find the right mentors and connect to them?
I would say it's extremely important. And these mentors may not follow you throughout the whole process either. They may just be really, really good at one particular part of it, and they'll offer as much time as they can and as much resources as they can. And then after that, they've kind of got you past the hump, and then you may have to go out and find another mentor. But, I personally look on, for instance, one of my associates, or I guess you say, fellow entrepreneurs, was on Shark Tank. And I saw, his product on LinkedIn. I seen it on Facebook, and I was like, man, this guy really has everything that I'm, kind of looking for. And he's a really solid guy. So I reached out to him and said, hey, my name is Joe Pippins. We're just getting started. I saw your product on, whatever it was, and kind of curious if you, if you had some time, if I could just ask you a couple questions. I promise I won't take up a lot of your time. That's so important to make sure these people know that you're not going to be blowing up their phone and just really taking up all their time, because most of us are very, very busy. And we want to help, but sometimes our schedule just doesn't allow us to. So I asked that question, and he was cool. He was like, yeah, no problem. Eventually ended up giving me a cell phone number, and eventually ended up giving me some contacts to manufacturers and, additional funding. And it just was amazing. I mean, this person had been through everything I'd been through. So my promise to him was I was going to do the same for others, And, he said, if you ever make it big, I don't want anything at all. Just buy me a boat. And I was like, okay. I'll get you a fishing boat. So your mentors and the people you look up to are people who've done it. They're successful, and keep asking, and sometimes you got to keep asking the same person, because once again, it's about timing. So look for people that are already accomplished what you're looking to do, and don't stop yourself, from reaching out to the big fish, because you'll be amazed sometimes these people will be willing to take you under their wing as well.
And a thread that I've heard through your entire story here is how important people skills are, understanding your customer and what they need and what they're going to want and what they don't want, and understanding kind of how your work ties to your own personal values and how it affects your family and your friends and those around you, and building that network. Can you talk a little bit about how you've maybe developed those skills over the course of this process, and what any tips you have for folks who are kind of just putting their toe out there?
You mean in terms of like the networking and the whatnot?
Yeah,
Okay.
the people aspect.
Yeah. I think that for me, like some of my employees or people that I've hired on to help me have been customers. People who are like, man, I just love this product. I love to help out. And they're like, go to trade shows. Some of my really good friends have sold product for me at trade shows. My kids have helped me build, products, and I've had even some of my mentors stop by and offer some support, volunteer, contribute to my Kickstarter campaign. I think you just have to not be afraid of asking for help, but then also be passionate about it yourself. I mean, nobody wants to invest in anyone's vision that's not like burning them up, and these people can see that, whether or not if you're going to use their time and resources wisely or just trying to, try 10 different things and see which one's going to work, so you've got to have a passion for your product, and you ask these people, say, hey, would you mind helping me out? Or, like I've had, these focus groups, which were awesome. It wasn't like I, like knew these people. I actually had to get complete strangers and ask their opinions. And I told them up front, hey, listen, there's no hard feelings. I want the truth. And, sometimes you can't let them know you're the inventor either. Yeah. That way you can kind of sometimes get their real honest opinion. So biggest thing I guess to say as far as building a network is ask and recruit, go out and look for some people that you think are passionate about things that you can build a relationship with. And you almost have to be friendly and friends with some of your business partners too, because it does make this process a lot easier. So make some friends.
That's great advice. Are there technical skills? We mentioned a few of the courses that folks might take if they're kind of in their study period and they're preparing for this line of work, getting ready for that business aspect, accounting, some maybe marketing. Are there other courses or training that you would recommend to a young person looking at this line of work?
I would look into Facebook ads. Try not to get into it when there's elections, because these ads become super expensive, and it really will take away a lot of your profit. So if that is the case and your timing just happens to be that, then you might want to look for other resources, maybe Facebook a little bit. But I've used YouTube ads, I've used Instagram. I put ads on Craigslist at multiple places across the country, just placing product. So use technology to your advantage, and sometimes even if you have a list of customers, if they're giving you their permission to send them text messages, it's where you can send a video, of your product to these customers, and just said, hey, this is the newest thing we got going on. If you're interested, there's a link below that to buy one. Put the link in there and get the people straight there too. But I think you got to get real comfortable with technology. Using your cell phone, it's crazy. I've been able to run most of my business through my phone. There's times I've been hanging out, my buddies, and there's an order, or, so it's important to do that. Use your technology.
Yeah. So technology, it sounds like social media marketing is a really important thing to get comfortable with, and probably communication skills, since you're out there talking to these people, packaging that information. Those are all areas that our students might be looking at courses for the fall or coming up and think about taking.
Yes.
All right. This is always one of my favorite questions. What do you know that now that you wish you'd knew when you were starting out? Is there one big aha moment that you've had that you thought, oh, this would have made the whole thing so much easier?
I kind of mentioned it in my first early in my conversation. Well, earlier, build your product, then sell what you build. You do not have to have inventory. You do not have to have a fancy page. You don't even have to have a company formed, because I think that a lot of times people build, they get a company, and then they pay money for, an attorney, and then they pay money. I mean, if you're in the red before you even get started because you maybe haven't got the sales part, sales, marketing, spend your money on sales and marketing, and sell what you've designed, and get a return on your investment as early as possible, and try to eliminate as much debt as possible. Like, don't take on a lot of debt. Give up equity in your company if you have to, because it's better to have a profitable business and take your 75 cents on a dollar versus owing $3 for every dollar you make. That's something I wish I would have learned too. So I would say conserve your money. You know, you can't do this like, you know, on a shoestring per se, but you can do a lot of things yourself, but don't take on a lot of debt and don't spend a lot of money on patents, logos, packaging, and websites. You know, that's not going to matter when you start out. No one cares how great your website is. No one cares if your product's patent. No one cares if you got the greatest logo in the world. You know, do they want to buy your product is the question.
So really focusing on the product piece and
yes,
keeping it simple in those early days.
Well, yeah, and then how to communicate what the product's need is. You got to be able to do that too. You can't just like build something and just put it up and expect people to buy it. Like I thought that's how it worked at first. You know, I'm a professional salesperson. I was like, I can sell anything, but no one knows what you're selling. It's not going to work. So focus on the sales and don't spend a ton of money.
Gotcha. Looking through our questions here. Do you think it's important for people to get experience either shadowing or interning maybe with entrepreneurs or other inventors before they start out on their career path? Or is this something you sort of jump into and learn as you go?
I would say jump into it, mainly because, like, for instance, even for me, my son's been a part of a lot of this process, you know, but he's also done the work. You know, he's been side by side with me. He's not just been, you know, just absorbing information. He's actually jumping in. I would say jump into it by far. That'd be my advice. Shadowing's nice, maybe in supplemental that, but you should definitely jump into it.
So get your hands in there and actually participate.
Exactly.
That's great. And just a reminder, if anybody has questions that they'd like to send to Joe, our Q&A box in the Zoom feature and on the comment section of Facebook are still open to you. What does the workspace look like for an inventor? Are you typically in an office environment, or are you working in more production facilities more of the time? It sounds like you're moving around to a lot of different spaces throughout your work.
Yeah, I would say, you know, early on, your basements or garages are the best places to kind of, you know, get your hands dirty, so to speak. You have a home office, obviously, that's where we do a lot of our emails and, you know, sending out information. But once you go with your phone, you can send a lot of these things using your phone. So not really a lot of time in the office. So.
And you mentioned a little bit about how your idea started for the Fishing Caddy. Was there a research process where you needed to look at the market to see, was there other solutions to the problem already out there? How did you know kind of the environment that you were entering into with that product?
I did look at some other products that were similar. There's a product called a plain old sit and fish. This is just a bucket with a lid on it. Doesn't have a lot of the features a Fishing Caddy has. It's missing the rod holders, the LED lights, a nice comfortable seat, and a beverage holder. And there's some other competitors that we have too. So I did look at those, and I really didn't pay a lot of attention in terms of what they were doing, because I saw a picture of their product. And I was like, oh, okay, there's something here, you know, but let's try to do it better, you know. So we focused a lot on you know, having individuals try our product. Like I had early on fishermen from across the United States ice fishing to California that were testing my product and giving me feedback. So that's another thing I'd recommend, you know, rather than maybe focus on your competitors, maybe give out some product to your team, your research team, and get their feedback. And these are people that have to be able to use your product though. And the way I actually determined those people was I offered them a discount on the Fishing Caddy. It was not for free, because I gave away so much free product. Oh yeah, I'll make that video, man, and I never get a video made. Or, oh man, you give me this product, I'm gonna, you know, tell my audience about it. Not gonna do that either. But if they spend even just the cost of shipping to get it to them, then these are people that are serious about it, and they will follow through with their commitment.
That's great. The prototyping process for you, it sounded like you really wanted to execute a fully functional version of what you had your vision of the Caddy looking like, but there were certain aspects of it that really had to evolve when it went into major production. when you're in those early stages of building that prototype, how important is it that it be close to what the final product will be like, or are there compensations you can make so that you can kind of get that idea out of your head and get that feedback on it?
I would all day long build as much as you can to try to get a functional product on your own. And then if you cannot do that completely, then that's where I would go to animation. You know, I would go on Upwork as an example, find an animator and just kind of let them know what your product is and show your visual, the actual physical product. And don't worry too much about it looking perfect and professional and, you know, that kind of thing, you know, at that stage, you know, just try to make sure it's functional and that it will work. Because once people see it working, then the aha goes off, like, crap, why didn't I think of that, you know? And then use animation to finish the rest of it. And animation allows you to go wherever. I mean, you can put it on top of a mountain, put it on a pyramid in Egypt, or, you know, in a Himalayan creek in, you know, someone's backyard. You know, you can, the possibilities are endless. So use your imagination there.
Imagination, I like that. And it sounds like there are ways to get this idea out of your head into the world, even if it's maybe not lending itself right away to that prototype, that working with people who can draw or animate and get a picture of it to the world is also a good step.
Yeah. And then I mentioned Upwork, but to be honest with you, you can reach out to almost any university and speak to an engineering teacher, and I'm pretty sure that they will, you know, offer some assistance on a lot of these things, and animation is probably one of them. You know, once again, use those local people. You know, you'd be amazed sometimes your product could be, you know, a curriculum. You know, they might say, hey, you know, we're all helping, you know, this gentleman build this, you know, next spatula, you know, and next, you know, you have a team of people working for you to help bring your vision to light, and they're doing it in a low cost way. So start there too as well. Don't forget that resource rather.
That's a great idea. And we have maker spaces now where there's probably a lot of resources for people who are looking to cobble together some version of what they're thinking about.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, let me see here. We've got a couple more questions. Do you have employees now? Is your family still involved with the business? It sounds like your son's still contributing quite a bit.
Yes. And right now we have some employees and also some contractors as well. That's a whole nother conversation as far as for why you should make someone a contractor versus an employee. At least for my business, I had to make some decisions there based off of liabilities and, you know, taxes and things like that. So I do have a little bit of both.
Sounds like another hat that you have to wear as an entrepreneur is you're also the HR department to some extent.
That's right. Yeah, and then occasionally getting the complaints of the employees going out fishing with each other and tangling each other's lines up. So we have to write people up for that sometimes.
And it sounds like as you've grown, you've been able to bring in people to kind of take off some of those hats and to run with them. But do you still do a lot of the management of your communication strategy or your social media presence yourself, or do you have folks that you bring in for that kind of thing?
No, I do that myself, and I try to do it from my phone. You know, lately I've been doing more of my content's been more of like interactive. So some of it's fishing related and some of it's just kind of funny things in general, just to kind of, you know, keep people's lighthearted with all the stuff that's going on, you know, to keep people's smiles on people's faces. So that's also something that you can do that yourself. Everybody's got a cell phone. You can take pictures, go online, take pictures and get an editing, you know, software, whatnot to change up some of the stuff and, you know, give credit to the original creator rather, but, you know, to design some things that will resonate with your audience.
That's great. Well, and I think we have one last question that we can tackle, and then we will wrap up for the day. You mentioned trade shows and trade events. Can you talk a little bit more about what those are and how they've helped you or been valuable to you with your business?
Yes. The first year I did about 8 trade shows. Second year, probably about 6. And I determined that trade shows were not the best use of my time and did not have the return on investment as much as I would like for myself. Now, we made a lot of sales, but once again, going back to that expenses piece, it was also very expensive to get our product and our people there and paying for hotels and, you know, all the expenses that come along with that. So, you know, I went to one trade show. I'll tell the story real quick. We were in Washington and, man, we were not selling anything at all. No, Colorado. We were in Colorado. We weren't selling anything at all. Tons of people, no one's buying, right? And I was getting frustrated, and it finally dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute, we're already here. Like, let's start asking these people, why aren't they buying? Like, let's not make this into a negative and walk around with our chins on the ground. Like, hey, listen, this is a great product, great, boom. Here's a price point. Oh, no, we don't want it. Okay, listen, we're changing this. We're not selling anything anymore. This is not for sale. We're just wanting to get feedback from you guys. Tell us what we need to do to sell this to you. And then people started telling us what we needed to make some changes on in that area. So then after that, I looked at that area, the exact area, and put out a Facebook ad there after I got back and made some tweaks to a few things, and we're able to get some sales from that area. So, you know, the power of social media and that digital marketing and getting directly to your consumer is really important. So you can use trade shows either to generate revenue. A lot of guys I know go there, use it to get rid of their old inventory. We tried that approach last year. It was fairly effective in terms of getting rid of some units, but figure out a way to get your product to these trade shows cheap. Drive there if you have to. Get a trailer. Don't ship these things by UPS, FedEx. They'll lose your packages. They'll lose your shipments, which happened to us. Oh, no. And, you know, we showed up at trade shows where a 4-day show and had 2 days missed because our shipment got lost. So, and it also is very expensive. So, you know, word of mouth, branding, sales, eliminating old inventory. And the last piece I'll tell you I would consider using for trade shows is getting belly to belly with other partners to make some partnerships. You know, don't just sit there and make it all about sales, but you should be getting everybody's email that comes by your booth. So find a way to get them to drop their email. If you're doing a raffle for $100 at the end of it, or a free product or whatever, you know, the smart companies I've seen do well at trade shows actually are giving away $1,000. They don't even have any people. They just enter your email here to win $1,000, and they have an email database, you know, couple, 3,000 or 4,000 people potentially. So, you know, find a way to get these potential customers and clients emails.
Staying in contact and building that network, sounds like.
Yeah, it's a slow game, but it's worth it to do it.
All right. Well, we're getting near the end of the hour, and that was our last question. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, Joe. It's been really enlightening to hear your story and to see how you took that product from that idea where you had a problem, you figured out how to solve it, you really took it the full arch to now run the successful business. So thank you again for sharing that with us and with our listeners.